we are going to introduce you some our professor first. So welcome our Yan Zhen Hall, and he'll shortly help you know what is today's event.
So this year, like last year, we have several speakers from international, and it's really fortunate that we have Professor Furusawa to join us to give lectures. Last year we gave a lecture in finance, and finance students is interested, but however, I think the lecture for you guys will be the most appropriate because he's actually a very important scholar in Asia in terms of human resource management, and particularly international human resource management. And he will try to explain to you how the main essential human resource management in particularly Japanese companies. And I know that the truth is many of our companies in Taiwan, big companies, has similar system as Japan. And but however, the most interesting thing in Japan is companies that they have been becoming globalized since like 30, 40 years ago in the 80s and 90s. So that gave us very good opportunity to learn from the experience. Like first, you guys know TSMC is coming to Japan. And many big companies in Taiwan are also in Japan now. And how do they operate? How do Japanese companies able to operate a huge internationalized network? And as a matter of fact, the most important element is the human side.
As you know, our class is international trade. So, but our department is business administration, right? But you know that if we put the human resource management in international context, a lot of things have to adjust. So that's have a great opportunity for us to invite Professor Furusawa to give us a speech to talking about the employment of international students in Japan. I think this topic is highly relevant to you if you are interested in working or studying in Japan. So I think that will be very great. And could you give us a great applause to welcome Professor Furusawa?
Ni hao.
Ni hao.
And good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. My name is Furusawa. I'm professor of global management at Kwansei Gakuin University in Japan. Today, I'd like to talk about diversity and inclusion from the viewpoint of the employment of international students in Japan. Please relax and enjoy my lecture. So I'll start. Firstly, I'll show you the basic statistics on international students in Japan. The total number of them has been increasing recently. In 2011, it was about 160,000. But last year, it reached about 280,000. So, where are they from? China accounts for more than 40%, followed by Nepal and Vietnam. It is noteworthy the share of Nepal increased by more than 3 percentage points from the previous year. And Taiwan is in 6th place. So, where does they study? About 1/3 of international students study at Japanese language institutes. And 30% of them study at universities, junior colleges, and colleges of technology. Next, I'd like to move on to the employment of international students in Japan. About 33,000 international students were permitted to change their visa status from students to working in 2022. The number was a record high and 15% increase from the previous year. It means the number of international students who work in Japan after graduation has been increasing. And multilingual and multinational international students are anticipated to be valuable human resources for Japanese companies looking to expand their international business operations. However, diversity itself does not necessarily bring about the positive consequences. So, in today's lecture, we focus on the concept of inclusion as a way of working with diversity. And we explore the case of Honda Kiko Company Limited. Honda Kiko is a typical small and medium-sized company, but it has been expanding its overseas business by utilizing international students as employees. That's the overview of today's lecture. Is it okay so far? So, let's move on to literature review. What are the potential benefit of hiring international students for Japanese companies? I'd like to point out three things. The first one is creation of cultural synergy. As you know, cultural synergy refers to the creation of more effective human activities and systems by building upon similarities and fusing differences. It is said that the potential productivity of a diverse group is higher than homogeneous group because of greater resource, insight, perspective, and experiences. Yasumuro, a famous scholar in Japan, emphasized that cultural diversity can avoid the trap of groupthink and has a potential to become a source of innovation through cultural synergy. Therefore, as far as Japanese companies are concerned, the employment of international students will enable them to increase their potential productivity via the promotion of cultural diversity. And we can expect cultural synergy if the diversity is managed effectively. The second benefit is functioning as boundary spanners. Boundary spanners are defined as individuals who are perceived by other members of both their own in-group and out-groups to engage in and facilitate significant interactions between the two groups. In short, they are bridge persons. When companies enter international market, they encompass geographic, cultural, and linguistic boundaries. Boundaries bring about both division and identification that could lead to an us and then, or in-group and out-group mentality. Extant studies regarded the internalization of more than 2 languages and cultures as necessary conditions of boundary spanners. In that sense, bilingual and bicultural international students can be valuable candidates as boundary spanners for companies from homogeneous societies such as Japan. The third potential benefit of hiring international students is advancement of internal internationalization. Internal internationalization means the internationalization of the headquarters. And the term describes a situation where non-Japanese employees can participate in the decision-making at the headquarters. Yoshihara, another famous scholar in Japan, ascribed the slow progress of localization in Japanese multinational enterprises to the sluggish development of internal internationalization, or the lack of international experience and skills of staff at their headquarters. As I wrote down here, slow progress of internal internationalization will lead to slow progress of localization at their overseas subsidiaries. I'll show you reference data about localization issues of Japanese companies based on my empirical survey. Table 1 compares basic assignment policy of the president of overseas subsidiaries between Japanese companies and Western company. Western company means US or European companies. As for Japanese companies, 69% of them choose PCNs or parent country nationals, while the number is 26% for Western companies. In the meanwhile, Western companies choose HCNs or host country nationals or local persons more than Japanese companies do. And we found statistically significant difference between Japanese and Western companies. Reference data 2, here is the next data. This is a result of questionnaire survey of foreign affiliated companies in China. It shows the nationalities of the president in their US affiliates and Japanese affiliates in mainland China. According to this survey, 83% of the president in the US affiliates are HCNs, in other words, local employees or Chinese persons. By contrast, in the Japanese affiliated companies in China, the ratio is only 9.8%, which means most of the presidents are PCNs or Japanese employees sent from the headquarters in Japan. From these data, we can confirm the slow progress of localization or the existence of what we call glass ceiling in Japanese companies. And generally speaking, at least until recently, the career path of top executives in Japanese companies has been domestic centered, which creates management teams with little overseas experience and limited foreign language capabilities. Under such conditions, localization may lead to communication issues with their headquarters, which are staffed by only Japanese-speaking staff. So, as I said earlier, we can say slow progress of internal internationalization at the headquarters is one of the reasons for the slow progress of localization in Japanese companies, I mean their overseas subsidiaries. The other side of the coin is that the employment of international students could promote the internal internationalization of Japanese companies and help resolve their localization issues at their overseas operations. However, as I said before, diversity itself does not necessarily bring positive consequences for the organization. In fact, no theoretical model has been developed which verifies a direct causal relationship between diversity and the financial results of organization. Moreover, misperception, misinterpretation, misevaluation, and miscommunication abound in a culturally diverse group because diversity increases ambiguity, complexity, and confusion. And the perception gap between Japanese companies and international students have been pointed out. For example, during recruitment, many Japanese companies attach significant importance to the Japaneseness of international students, such as a high level of Japanese language proficiency and the Japanized way of thinking and behavior. On the other hand, international students expect their attributes as a foreigner to be appreciated. The second perception gap is foreign employees do not hesitate to change jobs often for career development. Such short-term career vision is regarded as incompatible with the long-term oriented human development policy of Japanese companies. More than that, it is stated that international students have a greater entrepreneurial desire than their Japanese counterparts. And the third gap is international student employees at Japanese companies desire for meritocracy or pay for performance. In other words, they are dissatisfied with conventional seniority-based evaluation and salary system of Japanese companies. Therefore, Japanese companies have to come up with a process and practice to benefit from cultural diversity, and they have to create a win-win situation between the two parties. In concrete, as I said earlier, we turn to inclusion as a key approach to benefit from diversity. Inclusion is a process and practice through which organizations can reap the benefit of their diversity. More specifically, inclusion is described as follows. The degree to which an employee is accepted and treated as an insider by others in the working system, or the degree to which an individual perceives that a group provides him or her with a sense of belonging and authenticity, or employees' perception that their full participation in communication and decision-making process is welcome and that their unique contribution to the organization is appreciated. In this lecture, we turn to the discussion by Shore and her colleagues sorry. In this lecture, we turn to the discussion by Shore and her colleagues because it is cited by many studies. As shown in figure 1, please look at the figure 1, please. They insisted the uniqueness and belongingness work together to create the feeling of inclusion. The inclusion cell represents a situation where an employee feels a sense of belonging and simultaneously feel valued for the characteristics on which they are unique. By contrast, the cell of low uniqueness, low belongingness is named exclusion. And the assimilation cell is where an individual is treated as an insider when he or she conforms to the dominant norms in the culture and downplay uniqueness. And differentiation reflects the situation of high uniqueness and low belongingness. Okay, now let us move on to the case of Honda Kiko. Honda Kiko was established in 1951 with their headquarters in Kama City, Fukuoka Prefecture, Japan. They have 143 employees and produce custom-made pumps and pumping equipment for industrial use. Honda Kiko is one of the typical small and medium-sized enterprises in Japan, but the company has been expanding its overseas business through the employment of international students. And it was awarded for its excellence in diversity management by Japanese government. Their products are shipped to about 70 countries around the world today. Next, I'd like to talk about the background of hiring of international students at Honda Kiko. As the domestic market in Japan matured, it was inevitable for Honda Kiko to cultivate new customers overseas. Moreover, their Japanese clients were also expanding overseas operations. The company had to keep up in order not to lose business. However, Honda Kiko lacked direct contact with overseas market and found it difficult to grasp the true needs of customers because they had previously exported their product indirectly through trading companies. Furthermore, the company had no employees able to communicate in a foreign language. Facing these challenges, President Ryuzoji, who took the position in 2005, aimed to increase international presence by employing international students graduating from Japanese universities. The president engaged in recruitment activities himself by participating in job fairs for international students. As a result, in 2008, the company hired an international student from Tunisia with a PhD degree and who is fluent in 5 languages, namely Japanese, English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. Do you know Tunisia? Do you know? Where? Where is it located? Tunisia?
North Africa.
Yeah, North African country, Tunisia. So Honda Kiko hired international student from Tunisia who is fluent in 5 languages. Since then, Honda Kiko has employed 18 international students from Japanese universities. The number of nationalities totaled more than 10, ranging from Asian or African to Western cultures. When they recruit international students, the company requires sufficient fluency in Japanese from the applicant. But President Ryuzoji underlines that it is crucial not to demand their Japaneseness too much, because the company employs international students mainly for their capabilities peculiar to foreigners, such as familiarity with foreign language and culture. So what are the characteristics of their human resource management? The first one is one company, two systems. In concrete, Japanese employees are divided into labor union members or managers. Both Japanese groups are under the same system and rewarded mainly by their seniority. Conversely, the foreign staff is dealt with differently from their Japanese counterparts as non-union members, regardless of their positions. Their basic salaries are based on their abilities, and their performance is reflected directly in pay rates and bonuses. In terms of benefit program, home leave is furnished to foreign employees upon request. The second feature is implementation of measures for normative integration. The company diffuses the corporate culture to all foreign staff by involving them in activities such as chanting corporate philosophy and code of conduct during the morning assembly every day, and involving them in factory cleaning as one of the 5S campaign. I think you know 5S. 5S. They are very famous practices originated in Japan. First one is Seiri, second one is Seiton, third one is Seiso, and the fourth one is Seiketsu, and the last one is Shitsuke. They also have a company-wide recognition program to award all employees, including foreigners, for excellent performance and behavior based on the corporate philosophy. And in addition, President Ryuzoji takes a hands-on approach to share corporate values with foreign employees by having frequent face-to-face meetings. And the third one is norenwake. Norenwake. It is a Japanese word. Norenwake is a Japanese traditional business custom that helps employees to establish a branch of the company. In the case of Honda Kiko, the foreign staff is assisted to set up as sales agents of Honda Kiko in their home countries. The president hopes that former foreign employees serve as reliable business partners when they go back to their home countries. And if a norenwake application is accepted, a special retirement bonus is paid as a startup capital of a sales agent. Today, 3 former staff run their own sales agent for Honda Kiko in their home countries. One of them is the first foreign employees from Tunisia. So what are the result of the employment of foreign employees? The first outcome is acquiring of new overseas customers. Former international student employees and sales agents by Norenwake communicate directly with overseas companies in English or local languages. And they respond to client needs by demonstrating a familiarity with local cultures and business customs. They also work closely with Japanese staff, serving as boundary spanners between the headquarters and overseas markets by internalizing the corporate culture. Consequently, the company has successfully provided overseas clients with custom-made solutions. During the 8 years after Ryuzoji took the chair of the president, their overseas sales ratio jumped from 20% to 40%, with overseas sales amount also doubling over that same period. The second outcome is cost reduction in terms of time and money. As I mentioned earlier, in the past, Honda Kiko was dependent on indirect export via trading companies. Indirect export is considered non-profitable since it is time-consuming and Honda Kiko must pay commissions to trading companies. However, by employing international students, the ratio of indirect export has dropped to 20%, while direct export has increased, contributing to the profitability of Honda Kiko. The third outcome is advancement of internal internationalization. The contribution of foreign staff to international business has acted as a good stimulus for their Japanese colleagues. And it has led to an increase in Japanese employees who also hope to engage in international business. Moreover, a company-wide English class was held with their foreign employees serving as lecturers. The employment of international students seemed to generate a synergistic effect of invigorating Japanese staff. Finally, I'd like to present implications from their case study. The first one is valuing the uniqueness of former international student employees. The company makes the best use of the uniqueness of former international student employees by measures such as one company, two systems, flexible grant of home leave, and the system of Norenwake. The president mentions that those practices live up to foreign employees' expectations, such as performance-based evaluation and salary system linked with their short-term career vision and their entrepreneurship. To put it differently, it seems that Honda Kiko leverages the effect of diversity on the company by satisfying the needs of foreign staff for their uniqueness. Our former international student staff boasts that he has contributed to the growth of the international business by utilizing his familiarity with the local language and culture. Furthermore, he feels grateful to the company for their flexible grant of home leave. The second implication is sense of belonging for international student employees. Honda Kiko nurtured a sense of belonging for international student employees by measures of chanting corporate philosophy, factory cleaning 5S, and a company-wide recognition program, and face-to-face meeting with the president. Through these practices for normative integration, which could promote the sharing of corporate culture and the building of trust with Japanese employees, the company aims for Hondanization of foreign staff instead of Japanization. Hondanization is more important than Japanization. The foreign staff informant states that he has come to understand their corporate philosophy by participating in the morning assembly and 5S campaign, as well as having a one-on-one meeting with the president. And now he feels a sense of belonging as an insider of Honda Kiko. The third implication is coupling of belongingness and uniqueness. Belongingness and uniqueness should function similarly to the two wheels of a cart to get the most out of diversity. As Showa suggests, a high value in uniqueness without belongingness is liable to reduce our sense of unity as one team. On the other hand, high belongingness without uniqueness might lead to a situation where foreign employees do not feel motivated to exhibit their cultural distinctiveness. In conclusion, the inclusion or simultaneous realization of uniqueness and belongingness is likely to contribute to the growth of Honda Kiko's overseas business. It is believed that Japanese companies will be able to benefit from diversity in circumstances where the unique value of foreign employees are recognized at the same time as they feel a sense of unity with their Japanese colleagues. This concludes my lecture, and thank you very much for your kind attention. 谢谢大家. Thank you.
It's the same QR code, so you can scan it. If you have any questions, you can type on it
Oh, thank
and
you.
it will show on it.
As I said earlier, many Japanese companies put importance on the Japaneseness of international students. That's a problem. And I think both Japanese companies and international students both change. They have to change. The change of mindset and behavior is required for both sides. Yeah, for both sides. I think that as far as international students are concerned, they have to understand the reality of Japanese employment system. On the other hand, Japanese companies have to change their behavior and mindset. I mean, they should not put too much importance on Japaneseness, because it will lose the benefit of diversity. So in that sense, Honda Kiko is very well balanced company. Very great example, I think, because they required sufficient level of Japanese language ability from international students, but they do not put too much importance on Japaneseness, because they hire international students to benefit from diversity or characteristics peculiar to foreigners. So that's, I think, the point. So in that sense, as I said earlier, both Japanese companies and international students should change to some extent. Mutual understanding and mutual transformation is required. Yeah. I'll give you some example. Some international students could be very aggressive, but it's against Japanese culture. Many Japanese companies like persons just are very modest and good at listening than speaking. But some international students are very aggressive and very assert their opinion very too much, and they don't listen to others. I think it's not good if they really want to enter Japanese companies. So in that sense, international student should the reality or the tendency of Japanese companies and try to change their mindset to suit the reality. Is it okay? I think interaction between Japanese employees and foreign employees is very important. Interaction is very important, and the interaction will nurture a sense of belonging or sense of unity as one team. In that sense, international students at Japanese universities do not interact with Japanese students. That's why they cannot get the useful information about the employment in Japan. They interact with international students from the same company, same country. So for example, Chinese international students interact with Chinese international students only. After the class, they do not interact with Japanese students. So that's why, as I said earlier, they cannot get very useful information about the reality of employment of Japanese companies. Generally speaking, they are having a hard time to get a job in Japan. The reason is they do not interact with Japanese colleagues. That's a very sad situation, I think. The number of students with dual nationality is very small, very small. So in that sense, we have international students actually we have international students with multi-language ability. We have, but to be honest with you, the level of their Japanese proficiency does not meet the level required by Japanese companies. They think, international students, they think my Japanese language ability is perfect. I got the, do you know, N1, This is a test of proficiency, Japanese language proficiency. N1 is the highest level of the proficiency. And many of the international students in Japan got this level. So they think, I'm perfect. I'm good at Japanese. But actually, their language level does not meet the level required by Japanese companies. So they should study more. They should study more. I think that's there's a gap between companies' expectation and students' awareness or self-awareness. That's a problem. They think they're perfect, but it's not actually. So they should study more. They should study more. I think as you know, Japanese language is very difficult language to master. In that sense, Taiwan, mainland China, has an advantage because we share Chinese characters. So you are very advantageous to master Japanese language. But on the other hand, for example, Nepal, students from Nepal or Vietnam, they don't use Chinese characters. So they have to study hard to get the level of N1. So in that sense, you are very advantageous. And the reason, the rise of Nepal student, I think there is an income difference between Japan and their countries. Japan is a very unique country because international students work 28 hours per week. I think it's a very rare country. In the United States, I think the international student will not be allowed to work part-time, to do part-time job. But in Japan, 20 hours you can, international students work 20 hours per week. It's very unique. And actually, this is very attractive to international students from developing countries because of huge income difference between Japan and their home countries. So some of the students comes to Japan to work instead of study. This is another reality in Japan. Yeah. So in that sense, for example, students from Taiwan is very, very attractive to Japanese company. We share the same Chinese characters, so your Japanese language level is very high. And I think, to be honest with you, the mindset is very, very similar to most of us. Yeah. So in that sense, Taiwanese international students are very attractive to Japanese companies. Japanese employment system to utilize foreign workers. There are two aspects. For example, in the case of international students, it's what we call white-collar employees. White-collar employees, you understand? White-collar. White-collar. In case of white-collar, I think we don't find serious problem. And Japanese government will try to attract white-collar employees just like you from all over the world. But the negative aspect of Japanese employment is employment of what we call blue collar workers. Blue collar workers, what we call, for example, construction workers or factory workers. We are suffering from the shortage of blue collar workers, just like Taiwan, I think. So Japanese government try to accept foreign workers from abroad, but they do not call them workers. They are trainees, they say. It's a rhetoric to avoid the criticism from the conservative persons. We do not accept blue-collar workers from abroad. We are contributing to the developing countries to accept and transfer technology to them. So they are not workers. It's a Japanese government rhetoric. But I think it's very wrong. It's not. So it does not fit reality in Japan. They are actually workers. They are actually workers, but they are not called workers. Or they are trainees. Other developed country, Japan, try to contribute to the developing countries. But actually, they are workers, and they work on very simple works. For example, construction or factory workers. It's not technology transfer at all, but it is called technology transfer system in Japan. It's a government's official policy, but reality is quite different from it. That's a problem. So in that sense, in the case of white-collar employees, there's no, I think we don't find so much problem. If I point out one problem, as I said earlier, Japanese wage system is still seniority based. So it is very difficult for Japanese companies attract very high level technician or specialists from the world, because for them this starting salary is too low. I think in the case of international student, I think this level of salary is understandable, but if you try to accept high level engineer, high level technician from the world is very difficult. But I think generally speaking, no problem with so much problem with the employment white collar employee in Japan. Actually, they do not put in energy for such a development program, because, as I said earlier, they want international students or international employees who works just like Japanese employee. So they treat foreign employees just the same as Japanese employees. So do not so much time and energy for the development of international students. Which means, on the other hand, they treat foreign employees and Japanese employees completely the same way. So in that sense, no discrimination. But I think they should put more time and energy for the development, or for them to understand Japanese business culture or business Japanese language. I think they should put more energy and time for the development in that sense, for the mutual understanding, I think small and medium-sized company is good at utilizing diversity than large Japanese companies. In the case of Japanese large companies, their employment system is what we call membership type employment. And in the case of small and medium-sized company, their employment system is job-based employment system. Job-based employment system. Which is global standard? Which is global standard? Definitely this one, job-based employment. But many of Japanese large companies still employ staff based on membership type employment system, which means you don't have specialty. You don't have knowledge to enter Japanese large companies. You are selected if you are a good candidate as our colleagues or new members of my company. So Japanese companies do not pay attention which specialty you learned at the university, which knowledge you learned at the university. They pay more attention to, for example, teamwork spirit, mental toughness, physical toughness as their colleagues of my company. That's a problem. It's not global standard at all. So you are not hired by your job in Japan, in Japanese companies. Just like a staff of our company. So you don't know which department you are assigned at all in membership type employment. You will be assigned as human resource development. You will be assigned as a sales promotion division. No, because no specialty is required when you enter Japanese large companies. That's why Japanese university students do not study hard at university. But in the case of small and medium-sized company, just like Honda Kiko, their employment system is job-based. In that sense, their employment system is more, it's a global standard system. Global standard system. For example, they employ foreign staff. For example, they look for Vietnamese international student because they will set up new factory in Vietnam. They need Vietnam student. So that's job-based system. But in large company, it's not. Membership type employment system. But I think they should change. And actually, some of the Japanese large companies are changing into this one, job-based these days. But it's a reality, again.